going? Good to see you guys. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Kevin Paisano. I'm one of the pastors on staff, and I'm also Nicole's dad and Anthony's dad, doing the lights back there. Good job, Anchovy. I nicknamed him Anchovy a few years ago, so I figured I'd tell you guys that. You can call me Anchovy. He likes that. And I'm also Ryan's dad. Ryan. Whoa, wow. He got booed. Now you know how I feel, pal. So, hey, week 4, we were talking about the phrase, that's not fair. So I thought I'd figure we'd start off by having a couple of my kids come up and share things that I did that wasn't fair. All right, come up. Here we go. I don't know why I did this.
Hey, you invited us to make fun of you.
I know.
Second time, he's letting us do it again.
Hey, why don't you turn your microphone on too, Paisano?
That's somebody else's problem. I did it.
It's a family thing.
Okay, so I did have to do a lot of thinking about this. No, I didn't. There was a lot of unfair things. So the one that I think is probably pretty relatable for you guys and most memorable for me is Halloween every year. You get dressed up, and like the cuter you are, the more candy you get, right? Is that like not the rule? I don't know. But like that's what I thought. So I would get like super dressed up. I was like super cute. And then I'd come back with this like pillow sack full of candy because we would hit all the houses, and I'd like pounds of candy. And I would go home, and my mom would start sifting through to make sure it's all safe. You know, you like open candies, you throw them away, like we're being safe. And my dad would swoop in to like help us out, and he'd be like, "Hey, dad tax," and just armfuls of candy, walk away with more than I even like started with. Where'd you get that from? You know, that was probably the most unfair thing.
Candy
my
tax.
Whole life. The dad tax.
Listen, I was trying to teach them the principle of tithing, and I'm like, dude, 10% goes to the father. So, but it could be worse. We do live in California. I could have, like, seriously, you said tax, I could have taxed you. It would have been like 50, 60%, but like, dude, there you go. There's life, kid. But I didn't. I only did 10%, so you should be thankful.
Teaching them early.
All right, next. Next victim.
So when we were little, and no one would fess up to having an accident or something like that. Yes, crimes. Thank you.
Crimes against the household.
He would take all of us and have us all do push-ups until someone either admitted to it, or in my unfortunate but mostly...
Dude, self-sacrificing.
Yeah, sure. That's what you want to call it. I would just say I did it so that everyone else would have to stop doing push-ups and complaining. But it was really the 5th child, apparently.
Yeah, nobody. It was nobody did it. Who left that out? Nobody. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. It was I didn't do it, and nobody always left things out. So I was like, all right, everyone's doing push-ups until someone tells me. And then I didn't realize Ryan was being just like Jesus, and he sacrificed himself for the good of humanity. So, all right, good job, Ryan.
Ladies and gentlemen, push-up therapy.
Push-up. Hey, go put that back. Do something. Jeez. All right. So I don't know about you guys, but there's always that time in our lives when we look around and say, man, that's not fair. And I felt like I was a pretty fair guy. So Anthony, I asked Anthony, and he's like, no, Dad, you're pretty fair. You didn't do anything that was unfair. I was like, keep giving him the Kool-Aid, you know what I mean? So there was a lot of stuff in my life where I was like, that's unfair. And I kind of grew up in a rough part of town, and my parents weren't like on assistance poor, but we definitely didn't have all the things I wanted. And so I would get stuff, and it usually had to do with I love BMX bikes. I love anything with 2 wheels, motorcycles, all that stuff. And it was like every time I got something, it was something a little like not as good as I wanted. And so for you guys to be like, hey, Mom, can I get a new iPhone? Or Dad, can I get a... And they go, yeah, we'll get you a new phone. They didn't say iPhone. They say, get you a new phone. And then you get something like that. Be like, oh, okay. By the way, I'm old enough. I had one of those bad boys, and it was amazing. So before this iPhone garbage, man, that thing was a beast. You could kill that thing. So there was a lot of stuff in my life. I was like, man, that's just not fair because this kid got this and I got X, Y, Z, and it wasn't as good as I wanted. And so I decided when I was young, I didn't grow up in church, and I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to work. So at 14, I got a job. I want a mountain bike, so I started working at a bicycle shop so I can buy a mountain bike because that's what I wanted to do. And I just started doing stuff for myself, which was in one sense, it was really good. It really helped me develop like good work ethic because I was like, dude, I'm going to work for it. But on the other end, like later on in life, it was kind of, in a sense, kind of bad because I didn't have a God. So I kind of became my own God. I'm like, dude, I'll take care of myself. My parents can't do it. I'll do it. So I took care of myself. And so I started working hard. And just out of high school, or just before I got out of high school, a good friend of mine, his parents owned a plumbing company. So I went to go work for them. I became an apprentice literally right out of high school. Don't tell your parents this, but I used to ditch high school to go work. And so I loved working with my hands. And so I started down this path right away. I started going to trade school right away. And I was just making good money right off the bat. And I remember talking to another apprentice that I was working with, and he told me how much he made. And I was like, what? This guy's a schlep. Like, he was so lame. Like, none of the plumbers wanted to take him on the job because he wouldn't do his job. He was super lazy. And I found out that the guy was making more than me. I was like, dude, that's not fair. So I went to my boss. I was like, hey, man, come on, what's up with this, that guy, blah, blah, blah. My boss gave me a raise. I was like, oh, dude, that's how you get money. You just complain and get yourself a raise. So I did. And then, but see, it didn't stop there because I became a journeyman plumber and then a master plumber. And I started working for a government agency. And if you ever work for a government agency, most of them we're really blessed around here because Santa Clarita is awesome and they really are fiscally responsible. But most of the other places are like, man, they just use money and money just disappears and then people get promoted. And I remember one time a good friend of mine, he was going out for a promotion. I'm like, dude, my buddy Ron, he's got it. I'm not going to get to work with this guy. He's going to get promoted. They're going to put him downtown, all this stuff. And all of a sudden he didn't get the job. Some other dude got this job. I'm like, how'd that guy get the job? I was like, what? And then we found out that his whole family worked for the school district. I used to work for LA Unified. I was like, oh, I see how that guy got in. Dude, that's not fair. And there's so many things in life that were like not fair. And I figured just to make it a little crush the point home, I got a couple pictures to illustrate. Here's a couple things that aren't fair. Oh, I just want to. I want to switch those. That poor big fish, he's in that little bowl. Here's the next one. Okay, that kid could probably beat me in basketball. He's not beating Shaq. Do you guys know how big Shaq is? 7'1". Literally, I looked it up because I'm like, I know that dude's a big dude. 7'1", and he has 23 size shoe. 23, that's 2 of these boots. So this guy's walking around. Man, I use those things as water skis. But man, it's like you get in these points in your life and you look around and whatever, it's at school or you're at home and you got your siblings and you're like, man, that's just not fair. And then your parents these days, they say what?
Life's not fair.
Dude, life is not fair. And you're like, that is the stupidest answer I ever heard. You're like, really? That's the answer? Life's not fair? Well, I want to tell you guys today, life isn't fair. I know, I just totally dad juked you. That's so bad. I'm sorry. But it's not. There's so many situations in my life that I looked around, I go, man, that is just not fair. All the stuff going on in society right now, so much stuff going on right now, it's just not fair. It's just not fair. And I think, geez, man, I wish that we lived in a world where I can bring fairness to all my kids and just say, hey, guys, man, life is easy. You can have everything you want, whenever you want. Man, I wish that was the case, but it's not. And to further that, there's other stories in the Bible of times when it shows that life isn't fair. Anybody can think of any of them? Anybody know a Bible story where things aren't fair? Shoot. Tell me. Bible story. Not fair. Yes. That's probably the biggest one. Yeah, for sure. That Jesus took on all of our sins on the cross. Super unfair. All the things that I wish I could tell you all the stories in my life, but they're probably not good for church. But man, that's not fair. One I think about is Job. Anybody ever read the story of Job? A lot of you guys probably didn't because you thought it said job, and you're like, I don't want a job. So you skip past that one, but it's Job. It's a dude. So let me tell you about this guy. So Job was a pretty rich guy. Had 10 kids. He had all kinds of stuff. It said he had sheep, and it gives like certain number. He had camels, sheep, oxen, donkeys. I know what that's like. I got a few donkeys at my house. Yeah, you got that. That was a dad joke. I got a couple donkeys. I won't tell you which one of them is the donkey. Okay, so today it'd be like a guy having several mansions and several like beach homes and Ferraris and all kinds of stuff. It would be like a guy standing on stage and his phone's going off in his pocket. That's what it would be like. I should answer it right now and be like, dude, why aren't you in church? Who is this? Oh, it's probably a scam call. I should have called it. You guys could have answered a scam call with me. That would have been super fun. So anyway, this guy's got all kinds of stuff. And not only that, Job was like a really, really great guy. It actually says in Job 1:3 that he was the greatest man among all the people in the East. I know a lot of people say that about me. They're like, oh, dude, Kevin, he's like the greatest guy at real life. I know. Shh, don't tell anybody. I understand. So I'm just kidding. No one says that about me. They say that about Finkbeiner. I get it. So anyway, heck yeah. Stop it. You're biased, dude. So like the first 6 chapters of Job lay out who Job is. And then all of a sudden it does this really weird thing. And it's like, it starts the story in like a heavenly court. And it says, one day the angels presented themselves to God and Satan came with them. It's like, what? Where'd that come from? Like he's talking about Job and all of a sudden, boom, here's the angels and here's Satan. And so let me do a little dialogue between God and Satan. So here comes the angels, Satan's back here, and God's like, dude, what are you doing here? And Satan's like, oh, I was just cruising around and checking stuff out on earth and, just seeing how things are going. And that's not what it actually meant. The terminology that's actually used is also in 1 Peter 5:8. It says, your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. That's like the same language. So Satan was basically doing what he's the master of. He loves. His mission is to take great things that God has created, things like family, money, work, possessions, church, relationships, sex, and distort all of it. And so that's what he was doing. He was roaming around looking for some trouble, and God's like, dude, what are you doing here, bro? He's like, oh, then, dude, I was just checking stuff out. And he's like, oh, yeah? He's like, you're just checking stuff out, huh? You're trying to cause some problems? He goes, have you considered my servant Job? And Satan's like, bro, Job only likes you because he's got all this stuff. He's got himself some camels. He's got himself some kids. He's got himself a good life. And as soon as all that goes away, as soon as life is unfair, he's going to turn his back on you. And it says, and he will curse you to your face. God's like, go for it. So let me read to you what happens to Job. That's right, people. I have a paper Bible. You know why? Because I'm old. All right. It says, one day when Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking at the oldest son's house, a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby, and the Sabaeans attacked and carried them off. They put the servants to the sword, and I'm the only one who has escaped to tell you. And while he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the fire of God fell from the sky and burned up the sheep and the servants, and I'm the only one who has escaped to tell you. And while he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the Chaldeans formed raiding parties and swept down and took all of your camels and carried them off, and they put the servants to the sword, and I'm the only one that escaped to tell you. And yet, while he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept from the desert and struck the four corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they're dead. And I'm the only one to escape and tell you. And at this, Job tore his robe and shaved his head, which was a sign of mourning. And I think to myself, that's not fair. That is just not fair. That whole situation is not fair. And God allowed it to happen. And honestly, the rest of the book, all the way, the book of Job, all the way until chapter 38, is Job and his 3 friends talking about what happened and trying to figure out, why did this happen to this guy? He was the greatest guy in all the land, in all the East. Why did this happen to him? And I think we still ask that same thing. Why do bad things happen to good people? we have that in our lives. We're like, Lord, I'm working hard at school. I'm doing all this stuff, and all this other stuff is coming in and attacking me. Well, Lord, why is this happening to me? And we have those same questions. And then God intervenes in chapter 38. And you know what he basically says? He's like, you just got to trust me on this one. You just got to trust me. And so for the remainder of the time, what I want to do is I came up with a few dad truths. So I know parents these days, maybe you'll hear dad truths from me. You might not hear them from your dad, but you might hear them from me. I just want to give you a couple things that have really worked in my life. I've been a Christian for 24 years-ish, just before Nicole was born. So let me give you a couple God truths. God truths. Dad truth. I'm not God, believe me. If any of you know me, you know I'm not that cool. So dad truth number one. We need to trust God in all of our circumstances. Proverbs 3, 5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understandings. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. There were so many times when life is unfair, and I just have to go back to the thing I know best. And the thing I know best is that I can trust God. And man, when Kathy and I first got married, we were both making Kathy's my wife, we were both making pretty good money, and she was working as a trust officer at a bank in Beverly Hills, and I was off doing plumbing stuff, and I did side work, and we just had money. We would blow money on all kinds of stuff. And when we had this sweet little thing over here, Kathy decides to stay home. So now we have two incomes. Now we have one income. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm still in the trades. I could still do a ton of side work, and I did. Then I started going to Bible college, and I felt God calling me to a life of ministry. And so when I did that, I cut my salary in half again. And I'm like, whoa, this is going to be really, really hard. And it was. And there were times where, man, we would have, two cars, not the best cars, and one would break down. And I'd be like, there's no way we have any money to fix this. So I was like, Lord, I'll ride my bicycle to work, to the church. I'll do whatever I have to do. We'll switch cars. I'll have her drop me off, whatever it takes. And there was a time when we had a car breakdown. We had something else happen. And I was just like stressed, going, man, I don't have the opportunity to do side work anymore. I was new in ministry, and I was like, what am I going to do? And I literally had someone ring our doorbell. And I answered the door, and some guy's like, Kevin? I'm like, yeah? He goes, here, I want to give you this. I'm like, hey, is this like a jury summons or something? Because usually that's like, got to get jury summons. So I'm like, okay. I took it, I closed the door, and Kathy says, who was that? I'm like, I don't know. Some dude gave me an envelope. I opened it up, and it was literally an envelope full of cash. And I was like, wow, we didn't tell anybody we were having any struggles at all. We didn't let anybody know it. I was just like, okay, we just got to keep trusting God. I just got to keep working hard. I got to keep trusting God. I'm going to do my part. God's going to do his part. And I opened it up. It was literally that fast. I opened it up. Guy hands me a thing. I closed the door. She says, who was it? I said, I don't know. I opened up the cash. I literally walked back out the door, and I'm like, we lived on a corner house. Nobody there. I ran around the corner. I'm looking for a car driving away. Nobody. I couldn't find anybody. Dude, was that an angel? Who the heck knows? I have no idea. But the guy handed me and took off. It was gone like a flash. And it was just the perfect amount that we needed to get us out of the hole. It was amazing. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen to everybody all the time. I mean, once in a while, God does some amazing things like that. Sometimes it was just like, hey, I got a side job. Someone needed some plumbing work, and I made just enough. It was just, he's always been trustworthy. And so I want to share that with you guys because God is a God that we can trust. Dad truth number 2. When things seem unfair, I want to let you guys know that you are loved. You are absolutely loved by the creator of the universe, undoubtedly. You are absolutely loved. Because sometimes when, things start piling on and like everything seems unfair, you take a test at school, your parents are acting sideways, and some other stuff is happening, you feel like you're unloved by all of society, right? I mean, it starts at home. You're like, I don't feel like my dad loves me, or whatever. And you're like, all that stuff just keeps piling on. But the greatest thing is you are loved by God more than anybody else in the whole universe. He loves you so much. So I'm a protector. Have you guys ever done like Enneagram? It's like a personality thing. So I'm a number 8. And number 8 means like, it could be really good, but it could be really bad. Like it can really destroy stuff in like a heartbeat. But I'm like a lion, you know? So I got my little cubs that are here at church. Anybody who mess with my little cubs, man, you know, which is good. That's a good thing. You want a dad that will protect you, right? Especially girls, you need that security from a dad. But it's also can be really bad because I'm like, dude, the world's crazy. Like, I don't want you guys going out and doing stuff. No, no, don't do that. Can I go out late? No. Nicole's 23. I have a thing in the house. Like, people come home at midnight. Like, I know she's 23. She's a great kid. She's going to get her doctorate here soon at, 23. It's going to be amazing. She's doing amazing. And I can trust her, but I don't trust anybody else, especially with my girl. Like, But I had to learn one thing. As much as I love my kids, God loves them even more. And so as a parent, I have to release my kids to God and go, Lord, I did the best I can do as a dad. I've tried to teach them about you. I've tried to live it out. I've screwed some stuff up. I've apologized. But Lord, they're really your kids. And that's really hard. So if your parents are hard to deal with sometimes and you feel like they're overprotective, I'm going to tell you right now, it's because they love you so much. And it's hard. I'm telling you guys, as a dad, it is so hard, especially with girls, to let your little girl go. And all of a sudden you're dating and some guy wants to come over. I'll punch that kid in the face and mess with my girl. I've said things like, you hurt her, I'm going to hurt you. Everything you do to her, I'm going to do to you. Better watch it. I've literally said stuff like that because I'm a protector. But I have to go, Lord, this is my kids, but Lord, they're your kids first. Your parents love you, and you have to understand that God loves you even more. Dad truth number 3. I want you guys to try something. Practice the discipline of contentment. Okay, so I love stuff. I love motorcycles. I love cars. I like old cars. I like new cars. I like anything basically that has wheels and a motor. I love all that stuff. And I love all the tools to fix those things when I break them. I love all that stuff. And that stuff is super expensive. And my problem is I went around so much of my life wanting and chasing after those things so much that, man, I would go and I would buy an old classic car and I would fix it up and I'd be like, yeah, it's so awesome. And I'd be like, dude, I want that classic car. That thing's awesome. I'm going to sell this one and get this one. Man, I need a dirt bike. I need another dirt bike. I need a street bike. I need all this stuff. And then, then we cut our salary in half and we cut my salary in half. And all of a sudden I can't get these things. Ugh. So much of my life, it was like based on these things. But I had stuff, but it wasn't good enough. It was never good enough. So I was like, oh, man. And as a matter of fact, it would cause fights between Kathy and I, because we would be struggling. I'm like, I want things. And she'd be like, we can't afford these things. I'm like, dang it. I work hard. I deserve this. And then I read this verse, because this is exactly what it was. It says this, James 4:1-3. It says, what causes quarrels and fights among you? Don't they come from evil desires that war within you? Listen to this. You want what you don't have, so you scheme and kill to get it. You are jealous of what others have, but you can't get it. So you fight and wage war and take it away from them. Yet you do not have what you want because you don't ask God. And even when you ask, you don't get it because your motives are all wrong. You want only what gives you pleasure. Dude, that verse slapped me right in my face when I was a brand new Christian. I was like, ooh, that's talking to me. That's my verse right there. And then I went on and read another verse. You guys ever hear Philippians 4:13? I can do anything through him who gives me strength. You got that on your water bottle? You want to know what that's talking about? It's talking about being content. Let me read to you that whole verse, because I thought it meant something completely different. This is verse 10, Philippians 4:10. I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at least you've renewed your concern for me. See, Paul was in jail. The reason why Paul was in jail wasn't because he was doing anything bad. Is because he was preaching about Jesus and causing problems in some other churches and stuff. So they arrested him, put him in jail. And he's writing this letter to the church at Philippi. And they say, and he says this, that you've renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you have been concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. And he's talking financial. In the Greek text, it has a connotation of that being financial concern. He goes, I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know that I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do anything through him who gives me strength. And I was like, man, I need that verse so bad. But the problem with that verse is that I'm not a very content person. I don't ever want to be the same guy that I was when I first came to Jesus. I want to grow. I'm someone who wants to strive and thrive, and I always want more for myself, and honestly, I want more for my kids. I don't want them to be content in life. As a matter of fact, I used the wrong word. I don't want them to be complacent. Because I know, and I don't want you guys to be complacent either, because I know that God has given every single one of you a gift and talent that the world is waiting to see. And it's all different, right? I mean, I have skills. I'm a trades guy. I can work with my hands. I can pull motors out. I can do all kinds of stuff. And some other people are like, dude, I wouldn't even know where to start. I don't know what to do. And I just start pulling stuff apart and putting stuff back together. And somehow it just works at the end. I don't know how. I don't like reading, so I don't open manuals most of the time. I just start putting stuff together, and I can see those things. That's a gift and talent I have. Not everybody has that. But God's waiting for me to use that. And God's waiting for you to use your gifts and talents. And those gifts and talents have to grow sometimes. So I don't want you guys to be complacent. So I started using a word years ago. It's called holy contentment. And that's basically is just being thankful for the things that you have right now and being content with the things that you have right now, yet striving for something greater. Because I know you guys have greatness in you. But maybe God hasn't developed that in you yet. So I don't want you to be complacent. I just want you to be content with what God gave you right now. And that has been one of the key things in my life. I might not be able to go out and buy the brand new, greatest, baddest dirt bike, but man, I got one, and I'm thankful that I have it. We don't have the nicest stuff in town, but I'm thankful that we have any stuff. And I know that God can take away all that stuff at any moment. So I'm just going to enjoy it right now. God can take away anything in my life. He can take away my ability to walk. Who knows? I can crash on my dirt bike and, one of your parents could be driving crazy through a parking lot, clip me in the parking lot. Who knows? Who knows what can happen? I just need to enjoy life now, and I need to make the most of everything right and now. And that's my truths. That's my dad's truths. And I hope that stuff works for you guys, and I hope you guys can pull those things out, in your life. I know you guys are, some of you are seniors. Dude, that's awesome. You're going to need this idea of trusting God. You're going to need to know when you go away to college, man, that God loves you more than anything else. He loves you more than anybody in this room. He loves you. And I want you to be content. It's good stuff. Let me pray for you guys. God, just so grateful for these students. Lord, I know sometimes they just have tension in their house and tension with their moms and dads. And God, I just pray that you would help these students to understand how much they are loved by you. Lord, and help them to understand how much they can trust you, God. You are a God that's proven to be a God that can be trusted. And Lord God, I just pray that they would live a life of contentment, yet God, continue to strive for more and be more and do more. God, just so grateful that these students have a place to come. Lord, this is something that I didn't have when I was growing up. My folks didn't go to church, but these students have something so important that I wish I had. I pray, God, that you would be with them, that you would encourage them day by day, moment by moment, and that you would be with all their parents. Lord, these kids don't come with a manual. Sometimes, God, we don't know what to do as parents, and we're just trying to figure it out. Lord, sometimes we just mess up. And Lord, I just pray that when we do as parents mess up, that you would stand in the gap for us. You'd be with these students. You'd continue to grow to be closer to you every day. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, God bless you guys. Have a good one.